Well, the protests in neighbouring Belarus against the official result of the presidential election continue to dominate Russian news sites, and there's a lot of sympathy for the protesters. The headline in Moskovsky Komsomolets: Belarus has run out of patience. Lukashenko has lost his chance to stop the protest. He's the cause of it. On Monday, the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, called the protesters sheep who were being directed from abroad. But these sheep haven't allowed themselves to be slaughtered. Protests have taken place in 33 towns. In Zhodino and Lida, police have stopped taking on the protesters and laid down their shields. In Baranovichi, a crowd of protesters made the security forces run away. It's not sheep who behave like this. It's people whose patience has been exhausted. When, after a quarter of a century in power, the head of state allows himself to call his citizens sheep and behave in his own country not like an elected president, but the lord of the manor, that's when patience runs out. Even sheep can become dangerous. Novaya Gazeta: Lukashenko shouldn't have been so greedy. If he'd have ordered Mrs. Yermoshina, his loyal head of the Central Election Commission, to give him 55 to 60% of the vote, it might have worked out. Belarusians, of course, wouldn't have believed it, but after all the 80% he'd got, the West might have swallowed it. If he'd have given himself 60% and opposition candidate Tikhanovskaya 30%, her campaign team might have recognised the election. But as the saying goes, greed was the undoing of the dimwit. And not only the dimwit. He has demonstrated his defeat, his cowardice, his hysteria and total failure to the whole world. This is pro-Kremlin Komsomolskaya Pravda. Second day of protests in Minsk. People are being slung against the sides of police vans and then chucked inside like sacks of potatoes. The reporter writes about his encounter with a protester. An elderly man came up to me and introduced himself as a retired general from the emergency ministry. "Are you from Russia?" he asked. "You must understand that the election result isn't credible. If you accept it, you will have betrayed us." Nezavismaya Gazeta: Lukashenko's predicted victory has unpredictable consequences. People are determined to continue the protests and defend their votes. Kommersant suggests the Kremlin sees an opportunity here to gain more influence in Belarus. From the congratulatory telegram Putin sent Lukashenko, it was clear that the Russian leader can't wait to resume talks about integration that were interrupted by the election campaign in Belarus. It's a convenient moment, since the toughness and at times brutality demonstrated in the last few days and months by the Belarusian security forces may give Lukashenko less room for manoeuvre with the West. But for a very different picture of events in Belarus, and a very pro-Lukashenko picture of events, read the Russian government paper. No mention of vote rigging or police brutality here. With more than 80% voting for Alexander Lukashenko, Belarusians voted to continue integration with Russia. That's the view of Russian senators based on preliminary results. There is no doubt that the election campaign was in accordance with the law, said those Russian parliamentarians who monitored the election. One of those senators, Alexei Kondratyev, calls the protests hooligan antics, aimed at destabilizing the situation and discrediting the election and destroying the state.